The Haunting of Ravenwood. Nestled deep within the forests of New England, the town of Ravenwood had always been shrouded in mystery. Founded in the late 17th century, it was one of the many small towns that dotted the rugged landscape. However, unlike its neighbors, Ravenwood held a dark secret, a legend that had been passed down through generations. The legend spoke of a witch named Eliza Blackwood, who was accused of practicing dark magic and summoning evil spirits. The townsfolk, gripped by fear and hysteria, captured Eliza and burned her at the stake. As she died, Eliza cursed the town, vowing that her spirit would return to wreak havoc on the descendants of those who had wronged her. For years, strange occurrences plagued Ravenwood. Crops withered, livestock died mysteriously, and people disappeared without a trace. The town's residents whispered about Eliza's curse but dismissed it as superstition. However, those who lived closest to the forest knew better. They had seen her ghostly figure wandering among the trees, her eyes burning with vengeance. Chapter 1: The Arrival. In the summer of 2024, a young couple named Jack and Emily Carter moved to Ravenwood, seeking a quieter life away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Jack had inherited an old Victorian house from his late uncle, and the couple saw it as a perfect opportunity to start anew. The house, though beautiful, was in a state of disrepair. Its paint was peeling, and the windows were boarded up, but Jack and Emily were undeterred. They set to work, restoring the house to its former glory, unaware of the dark history that lurked within its walls. Their neighbors were friendly, though somewhat reserved. They spoke in hushed tones about the town's history, warning Jack and Emily to stay away from the forest at night. The couple laughed off the warnings, attributing them to local folklore and superstition. Chapter 2: The First Encounter. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack and Emily decided to take a walk in the forest. The air was cool, and the forest was alive with the sounds of chirping crickets and rustling leaves. As they ventured deeper, the atmosphere grew heavier, and an unsettling silence fell over the woods. Suddenly, Emily stopped, her eyes wide with fear. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Jack strained his ears but heard nothing. "It's probably just an animal," he said, trying to reassure her. But Emily was not convinced. She felt a cold presence, as if someone, or something, was watching them. They quickly turned back, eager to leave the forest behind. As they walked, Emily glanced over her shoulder and saw a shadowy figure standing among the trees. The figure was tall and gaunt, with glowing eyes that seemed to bore into her soul. "Jack, look," she cried, but when he turned, the figure was gone. They hurried home, their hearts pounding. That night, Emily had terrible nightmares. She dreamed of a woman with long, black hair and a face twisted in anger, standing at the foot of their bed, whispering curses. When she woke, she was drenched in sweat, her heart racing. Chapter 3: The Disturbances. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen in the house. Objects moved on their own, doors slammed shut, and eerie whispers echoed through the halls. Jack and Emily tried to rationalize the occurrences, but the incidents grew more frequent and more terrifying. One night, as they were sitting in the living room, the lights flickered and went out. Jack grabbed a flashlight and went to check the fuse box. As he was fixing the issue, Emily heard a faint, melodic humming. She followed the sound to the attic, where she found an old, dusty trunk. Curiosity getting the better of her, Emily opened the trunk and found a collection of old journals and photographs. The journals belonged to Eliza Blackwood, and the photographs depicted the townsfolk who had condemned her. Among them was a portrait of a young woman who bore a striking resemblance to Emily. As she examined the items, a cold breeze swept through the attic, and the humming grew louder. Emily felt a presence behind her and turned to see the ghostly figure of Eliza Blackwood, her eyes burning with fury. "You cannot escape my curse," Eliza hissed. "You will suffer as I have suffered." Emily screamed and ran downstairs, her mind reeling with fear and confusion. She told Jack what had happened, but he was skeptical. "It must be your imagination," he said. "There's no such thing as ghosts." But Emily was convinced that Eliza's spirit had returned and that they were in grave danger. Chapter 4: The Investigation. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily began researching the history of Ravenwood and Eliza Blackwood. She visited the town library and spoke with the local historian, Mrs. Henderson, who was more than happy to share what she knew. Eliza was accused of witchcraft by the townsfolk, Mrs. Henderson explained. They claimed she had cursed their crops and summoned evil spirits. She was tried and executed, but not before she cursed the town and all its descendants. Emily learned that many of the townsfolk who had been involved in Eliza's trial had met mysterious and violent ends. Their descendants had also been plagued by misfortune, leading many to believe that Eliza's curse was real. Armed with this knowledge, Emily returned home and shared her findings with Jack. He was still skeptical but agreed to help her investigate further. They decided to explore the attic again, hoping to find more clues about Eliza's curse. As they sifted through the old trunk, they found a hidden compartment containing a locket. Inside the locket was a small, faded portrait of Eliza Blackwood. Emily felt a strange connection to the locket and decided to keep it with her. That night, as they slept, Emily had another nightmare. This time, she saw Eliza standing in the forest, chanting in an unknown language. The ground trembled, and dark shadows emerged from the earth, surrounding Eliza. Emily woke with a start, clutching the locket tightly in her hand. Chapter 5: The Confrontation. The disturbances in the house grew more intense. Jack and Emily could no longer ignore the paranormal activity. Desperate for answers, they sought the help of a local medium named Claire, who had a reputation for dealing with malevolent spirits. Claire arrived at the house and immediately sensed the dark energy that permeated the air. She conducted a séance in an attempt to communicate with Eliza's spirit and uncover the source of her anger. As they sat around the table, holding hands, Claire began to chant softly. The temperature in the room dropped, and a thick fog enveloped them. Suddenly, Eliza's spirit appeared, her face contorted with rage. "Why have you summoned me?" Eliza demanded. Claire spoke calmly. "We seek to understand your pain and find a way to bring you peace." Eliza's eyes glowed with fury. "There can be no peace for me. I was wronged by this town and its people. They will suffer as I have suffered." Emily, feeling a surge of courage, spoke up. "Eliza, we are not the ones who wronged you. We want to help you find peace and lift the curse from this town." Eliza's expression softened slightly, but her eyes remained filled with sorrow. "You bear the mark of my bloodline," she said, pointing to the locket. "You are a descendant of those who betrayed me." Emily was stunned. "But I had no idea." "Please, Eliza, let us help you." Eliza hesitated, then nodded. "To lift the curse, you must find my remains and give them a proper burial. Only then can my spirit be at rest." Chapter 6: The Search. Determined to lift the curse, Jack and Emily set out to find Eliza's remains. They searched the town records and discovered that Eliza had been buried in an unmarked grave in the forest, near the site of her execution. With Claire's guidance, they ventured into the forest at night, the moon casting an eerie glow on the trees. They followed an old, overgrown path that led to a clearing where a large oak tree stood. At the base of the tree, they found a patch of disturbed earth. Jack and Emily began to dig, their hearts pounding with anticipation. After what felt like hours, they unearthed a set of bones wrapped in a tattered cloth. Emily felt a wave of sorrow wash over her as she realized the extent of Eliza's suffering. With great care, they gathered Eliza's remains and returned to the house. They prepared a small, makeshift altar in the backyard, adorned with flowers and candles. Claire performed a cleansing ritual, calling upon the spirits to grant Eliza peace. As they buried the remains, a sudden gust of wind swept through the yard, extinguishing the candles. Emily felt a warm presence beside her and looked up to see Eliza's spirit, her face now serene and free of anger. "Thank you," Eliza whispered. "You have given me peace." With those words, Eliza's spirit faded into the night, and the oppressive atmosphere that had haunted the town began to lift. Chapter 7: The Aftermath ***. In the days that followed, the town of Ravenwood seemed to come alive. The crops flourished, and the livestock thrived. The townsfolk, once wary of Jack and Emily, now welcomed them with open arms, grateful for their role in lifting the curse. Jack and Emily continued to restore their home, now filled with a sense of peace and contentment. They often visited the clearing in the forest, where they had buried Eliza's remains, leaving flowers and paying their respects. The legend of Eliza Blackwood became a story of redemption and forgiveness, a reminder of the power of understanding and compassion. Ravenwood, once a town shrouded in darkness, now stood as a beacon of hope and renewal. And though the ghost of Eliza Blackwood no longer haunted the town, her story lived on, a testament to the enduring power of love and the triumph of light over darkness. Epilogue: A New Beginning. Years later, Jack and Emily started a family, raising their children in the house that had once been a source of fear and mystery. They taught their children about the importance of compassion, understanding, and the lessons learned from the town's dark past. The townsfolk, too, embraced the new beginning, working together to ensure that the mistakes of the past were never repeated. Ravenwood flourished, becoming a symbol of unity and resilience. And though the ghostly figure of Eliza Blackwood was no longer seen wandering the forest, her legacy lived on, a reminder that even the darkest of curses can be lifted with love and forgiveness.
Don't forget to subscribe.